Welcome to Hashmarks and Working Tools, where football meets the craft and hot takes come properly squared. Hosts Mike McDermott and Joel Cade torch NFL game film, then grab the Masonic working tools to talk strategy, character, and the craft itself.
Hey. Welcome to our podcast. This is Mike McDermott, and we have Joel Cade with us.
Hi, everybody.
How's your morning going so far?
It's been crazy. I mean, I forgot we were recording this morning, so I had to rush. So, I mean, it's been crazy.
I was not prepared either, but we pulled it together for everybody.
That's right. We're gonna make this happen.
That's right. So, what's been going on in the world of football, Joel?
So, football right now, what we have going on for the most, just for the average fan, what we're talking about is generally the draft, coming up to the draft, what your team's going to do in the draft, who they're going to pick, who they're going to not pick, that kind of thing. But what I find interesting is that right now is the current owners meeting. So this is where the nitty gritty of some stuff goes down before the draft. Now, remember, they had an owners meeting about 2 or 3 weeks before free agency started. That was right before the league year. And they usually have another one right before the draft, which is what's occurring right now, about 3 weeks before the draft. A couple of things come out of the owners meeting. One, Browns head coach Todd Monken decided to not show up for the annual coaches picture, but the person who did show up was Kevin Stefanski. So when the picture came out, all of us Browns fans got to see Kevin Stefanski out there, but no Todd Monken. Apparently he can't show up for coach's picture. I have no idea why, but that's one. Two, I got 3 things today, by the way. 2, Browns owner, actually I got 2 parts on the Browns owner. Browns owner Jimmy and Dee Haslam, or Dee and Jimmy Haslam as they prefer to be called, first of all came out and said that there's a good chance that Deshaun Watson could resurrect his career or not be a swing and miss if he can come into camp and win the job and start for the Browns. So that has a lot of Browns fans like, over my dead body, are we going to watch Deshaun Watson? But the Browns owners are kind of opening the door for the idea that Deshaun Watson will be starting for the Browns, or at least not closing the door, because the rhetoric out there has been the Browns owner calls Deshaun Watson a swing and miss, and therefore he has no chance. But now they're trying to reopen the door for that. Second on Jimmy Haslam is this: they invested another large portion of their own funds, bringing their own contribution to $1.75 billion toward the new stadium that's going on in Brook Park up in the Cleveland area. That stadium is proposed to cost $2.6 billion, and they're putting $1.75 billion of their own money into the stadium itself. So news on that front, the owners, or at least Jimmy Haslam's, putting more of his own money into the situation. And finally, and this is the one I want to talk about, the Browns have rescinded their rule change that would call for allowing to trade 5 years of draft picks. And I got to thinking about this, and I was wondering if the reason people rejected this outright was because it was the Browns. It's like John Adams proposing independence, and everybody hates John Adams, so nobody wants to do it because John Adams proposed it. But I do wonder, because Andrew Berry, general manager for the Browns, came out and said, hey, do you do this for roster flexibility? And everybody immediately jumped on oh my gosh, they're going to trade 5 picks for
first-round picks for
Arch Manning. And I don't think anybody gave it much thought beyond that, so I thought I would. What could you actually do with trading 5 years of picks? Well, first of all, I think it should be noted, although there will be some disagreement, that the Browns have done an excellent job of maneuvering through the draft, trading up, trading down, trading back, trading forward. The problem for the Browns in the draft is they can't pick anybody worth anything, except last year they had a draft class, but before that they just picked like garbage. But they can move up and down, forward and backward, left and right throughout the draft pretty masterfully. They do a pretty good job of that, right? Other teams do a pretty good job of that, like the Ravens. They just draft back, and they have their own kind of strategy. The Steelers just sit and pick. That's all they ever do, is just sit and pick. But the Browns will trade back. And it's the smart play, because I'm not going to get into all that. We can get into that next time when we talk about the draft. But I don't know if teams are concerned that like these analytic-based teams like the Browns, the Ravens, the Eagles, maybe the Bills, who have really kind of embraced analytics, are just going to like do laps around them in the draft if you can
No,
trade
that's not
5
it.
picks.
That's
Well, let
not
me think
it,
about this.
Joel.
Okay, all right, fine. All right, I'll grant it. That's one thought process, and I think I do think it's a real thing, and I don't think people are giving that one credit. But I do think too. Andrew Barry's argument was that it helps you draft or helps you to roster build. And I think that's a good idea. Like, let's say you are a team like the Browns who wants to have a good team together in 2030 when you roll into a new stadium, right? That means you need to front load your team. You need to have your team in place by the 2028 draft. So if you want to say, okay, I need to have all my players in place for the 2028 draft that I would be able to do so they could play 1 year in 2029 to get their rookie year out of the way and then be ready and prepared going into that second season. So then you could trade your picks from the 31, the 30, and the 29 draft if you wanted to pop back into the 26, 27, and 28 draft to load up your team to prepare it to be ready to go into the 2030 year going into your new stadium. So it would provide roster flexibility. You could also sit there and trade. Like, let's say you're the Browns and you want to load up in the 2028 draft. You could trade your second round pick, say this year's second round pick. I don't know what number it is. I'm thinking it's like the 5th or 6th overall in the second round. Trade that for somebody's first round next year. That happens a lot, right? Or you could trade your third this year for a 2 next year. Or you could trade a third 2 years from now for a second 3 years from now. These things can already happen, but the longer you get out, the less valuable those picks are. So a first round pick in 2030 right now is probably worth a third round pick in the 2026 draft, right? So a smart team could say, we're going to trade out of this draft and up 3 years up for your first round pick for a third round pick today, right? This is where the draft manipulation gets into play because there's going to be some team out there like the Jaguars who were stupid enough to trade up for the second overall pick and then drafted a guy that's going to be both ways and that be getting hurt within 3 weeks of the season, right? You can find teams like this that are stupid enough to do this. And a team like the Browns who are smart enough to understand this, or the Eagles or other teams, can sit there and like start trading. I'm going to trade my third for your first 3 years from now, or I'm going to trade my fourth for your second 3 years from now and load up on a 2028 draft and be prepared to go in, particularly when you throw in the layer. I know I'm talking a lot, throw in the layer that different draft classes will have different levels of talent. Like next year's draft class for quarterbacks is a completely different draft class for this year for quarterbacks. You know, the wide receiver class may be better 3 years from now if you can project out how far these players are going to be in the college and when they're projected to come out. You could load up for that specific draft 5 years up the road to grab those players. So I think there's an underestimated value in being able to project out farther than 3 years and how you want to plan your team. I also think that, you know, the Browns have a reputation for being inept on the field, and that has gone. But I don't think they have the reputation for being a poorly run organization or an organization that just gets killed in the draft. They just don't draft well, but they maneuver through the draft very, very well. So I think there's a sense where a team who's on top of it like that, like the Ravens, like the Eagles, like the Bills, can turn around and manipulate drafts 5 years out if they wanted to. Go ahead. Yeah, I know you're trying not to laugh at me, but go ahead.
There's like none of the other owners or coaches even want anything to do with this.
I don't think they've thought about it. Like, I don't think they have an analytics department somewhere that sat and thought about what would we do if we could go 5 years out.
Now, it's not because like the Browns are kind of like poverty and they just can't understand how to deal with free agents, the period of free agency that we just had. No, I mean, it's not that, is it? That they just have to rely on the draft to do everything that they need to do as a team?
Well, no, the Browns have to overpay to get anybody to come to Cleveland because of the reputation. That's what it is. So you're going to get two kinds of people coming to Cleveland on free agency. One is the mediocre guy that you paid top dollar for, and two is the guy who wants his last payday before he retires. And then he shows up, you pay him, and he's basically quit on you before he walks in the locker room. Those are the two types of free agents you get, unless
Mm-hmm.
and that's a lot of the like, most teams will get unless they have a quarterback. If you have a team like the Chiefs, you're going to get a different level of free agent than you're going to get in Cleveland. Or if you have a
Yeah.
team that's ready to win versus a team not ready to win, like the Bengals, if they decided they were going to do anything in free agency, could probably go out and grab a bunch of people, which they kind of did this year because they have a quarterback, they have an offense, they're prepared, and they're ready to win. Team like Cleveland, they're not ready to go.
But like, I mean, you come off the heels of overspending for Deshaun Watson, and now you're saying I want to go in and have the opportunity to really overspend on a kind of on a whim, as you were explaining, right? You're talking
Mhm.
about, okay, so I would like to go build up a team that's going to be ready for 2030.
Why is that a whim, though? I mean, like, if you have a system in place like the Browns do, the Browns have the largest analytics department in the NFL, by the way. They're looking at like draft classes, like, and every team has done this. They know
Yeah.
who's coming out in 2024. They know who's coming out or 2028, 2029. I mean, at this point, you can almost project 2030 at this, like, just from who's coming into college. You know when they're coming out. They know when they're coming out. Most of them now are sticking around 4 or 5. If they can get a 6, they're gonna stick in 6 because 'cause they're gonna get paid more in college than they are in the NFL. So you can project 5 years from now who came in 2026, right? 5 years from now in 2031, that's a
Yeah.
good chance that's your draft class. Or in 2030, that's your draft class. So you could start saying this class has more of this class has more of that, which draft analysts do all the time. Just listen to any professional draft analyst. They'll tell you this class is good at this class is good at that, this class is good at this. And you could really start to say, we need this, and this at this year, and this year, and start to build that way. And Andrew Barry thinks in these terms. Like he comes out in press conferences and says things like, we know that in 2 years from now that we're going to have a free agent class that's going to look like this, and this. So we need to plan to have people in place to meet whatever needs we need in anticipation of what our contracts will run out. I mean, he says this stuff in press conferences,
That's a
and
lot, though. Isn't that a
general managers do
stretch?
that.
Isn't
Is
that a
it?
stretch, though?
I don't know. I mean, isn't that the question? But I think if you're not planning 2 or 3 years ahead, you're already behind the game.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to know what your contracts are and when they're expiring and what needs you're going to have. Like, I promise you, you could go on the internet right now and find somebody's board that had, like, you can just find a website that'll have it lined up when all the Browns contracts expire and what needs they're going to have in 27, 28, 29,
Yeah.
30, on and
Yeah.
on and on.
Sure.
Right. It's no different. You're just trying to say if we're going to have a draft class, we're going to draft at that draft. What are the players that are going to be coming out in the draft? You could line it up now
But
for 5
the
years,
risk,
right?
that's risky.
This is where I think the NFL has come down on it. Like the team that just spent 3 first-round picks on Deshaun Watson, who was a colossal bust, is now wanting to move out 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here and predict in 3 years this will be an NFL rule. Some team will look at this. They're not going to vote on it this year, but some team will look at this and realize that this is an absolutely brilliant strategy to trade 5 years out. It'll take a team like the Eagles, or it'll take a team like the Ravens, or it'll take a team like the Bills or the Niners, the Rams, maybe. Definitely, if you can get the Seahawks on board, right? These heavy analytic based teams, right now, they are all looking at this saying, what is the advantage and disadvantage of this situation? And you get enough of them on board, this will pass. I would say in 3 years, this is NFL rule.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It sounds so it sounds so speculative, Joel. Like you're talking about like, 5 years down the road, like how do you even know that those players are going to be available, right? I my son's a freshman in high school, right? And so like the big thing with the top football players is that they're looking for ways to get that NIL money, right?
Mhm.
And so you got guys in freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in high school trying to get that NIL money, trying to get front load it, trying to get those opportunities, right? So then, of course, what happens? What happens, Joel? then the 8th and 7th and 8th graders start to try and get that. Now they can't get the NIL money, but they start the program, right, of getting that NIL money. You have no idea if these guys are even going to play football
And
in
yet,
senior year. You have no idea.
on record, USC has offered 8th graders full ride scholarships to USC.
Yeah.
So it's out there. It's out there. And it's a matter, it's like the stock market. It's a matter of projection, right? What can we project out 5 years from now that this stock is going to do? And is that a good bet now? So if you project out in 5 years that the draft class is going to look like A, B, and C, then you can start making an educated gamble as to, do I want to load up for that draft and maybe trade out of this draft because we know it's going to be a sparse draft. And if you can do that 5 years out as opposed to 3 years out, that gives you a better opportunity to plan moving forward. The problem with the Browns doing it is that you've got an owner that like gets impulsive and starts trading everything away for people like Deshaun Watson. And that's not the first thing he's done that's really stupid. We drafted Johnny Manziel because a homeless dude told him to do it. So what you've got in Cleveland is this crazy dynamic where the league understands that like the brains of the brains are up there in Cleveland running the most sophisticated analytic department, and they have the most sophisticated plans to make this thing work. Then you've got an owner that's basically self-sabotaging. Every time the Browns get to a point where this can work, the owner does something idiotic that puts it into the trash can. So I think there are people out there. I promise you there are teams out there right now looking at this 5-year proposal saying, we're not ready to look at this or vote on this or approve this because we want to study it before we look at it. And when they start studying it, they're going to realize that this is something that's going to happen. It's just like projecting stocks. It literally is.
Yeah. I don't see that as the direction. I just think the Browns just need to do better. They just need to do they need to do, like, look at the quarterback. Like,
I think we're still on the situation where the team who proposed it has a reputation for doing idiotic crap because they have an impulsive owner. Okay. I think if it comes from a team that's not impulsive, that somebody says, okay, this team is responsible with their picks. They're not spending 3 of them on Deshaun Watson. They don't have an owner that's absolutely in love with Arch Manning because he's from Tennessee and thinks Peyton Manning is the sun, moon, and the stars, right? If they had a team like the Eagles, like the Ravens, that are very level-headed when it comes to drafting, and they come out and back this, it'll start to gain more traction. I think the team who proposed it is the one who's like sabotaging it because of their owner. And when Andrew Berry pulled it back, he came out and said, we pulled it back. The important thing is to get the conversation going. And I actually think he's right. But the important thing is to get other teams thinking about what can we do if we project 5 years out. And it makes sense. How many years are these kids in college? 5 years. How far can you project out a potential draft? 5 years, right? So if you know, and the teams know this, the team, well, maybe the Bengals don't because they don't scout, but most teams know who's sitting where and in what draft. So teams that do that kind of stuff, like analytic teams, analytic heavy-based teams, who know exactly what's going to happen. Well, not exactly, but they have a good projection of what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, can plan it out. And teams that aren't analytically based are going to be left behind. So I feel like there's a push right now because of the team that put it out there that this is a bad idea. And it's hard for people to overcome the idea that it's the Browns that put it out there. And all the jokes and all the this and this and Browns. And even Browns fans are, oh, we're going to trade 5 first-round picks for Arch Manning. And we might. That might be the stupidity we pull. And because we have an impulsive owner. But analytically speaking, this is really no different than projecting stocks 5 years down the road.
Okay. I mean,
I really think
you made a good argument. I just making the argument as a Browns fan, right? From coming from a Browns ownership, right? Is I think is part of the hilarity of it all, right? Like, it's like, why wouldn't you go and do other things better? Like, why are we focusing on this new thing over here? It's like, go do these other things better that you're not doing really well, right?
Man, and in fairness to the Browns, they did draft the Defensive Player of the Year who just broke the NFL sack record, and they just drafted the Defensive Rookie of the Year, who set at least the teams and who would be most teams' single season tackle record. So it's not like they drafted poorly last year. right? It's just they've drafted poorly beforehand. And the owner is so desperate to get a quarterback that you just, it's like he wants this quarterback that's also a marketing boon. Like, I think Jimmy Haslam is so invested in not Sean Watson, in Shadeur Sanders working, that they literally hired a coach on the basis of, will you work with Shadeur Sanders?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course,
Yeah.
he was with the Ravens, right? And the Ravens wanted to draft Sanders. That's pretty well known. They were going to draft Sanders, and Sanders says, "No, I want to go to a team that I can play for early and not sit in the bench behind Lamar Jackson." So I think once you get past the fact that the Browns are the ones who proposed it, and the Browns are the ones who are the idiots who go out there and do idiotic stuff like draft Johnny Manziel because a homeless dude told you to do it, and all the stuff that Jimmy Haslam gets his hands into, and you start thinking about it,
yeah,
going 5 years out makes a lot more sense than going 3 years out. But it's gonna take some other teams. They're not gonna pass it now, but you get them thinking about it, like, what can we do if we can project 5 years out as opposed to 3? And I think there's gonna be a lot of teams on board in the next 2 or 3 years.
yeah. Yeah, it's odd because it works in juxtaposition, I guess, towards the way that a lot of teams handle their roster, right? They handle like the Steelers handle their wide receiver roster. You're on the team for 2 years. That's it. And then you're off. And then we get a new wide receiver. You're on the team for 2 years, right? That's the way that we treat them. We have no loyalty towards the way that we handle our wide receivers, and by and large, it's worked out for us. We get the best, and then we send them off to other teams, and then they perform poorly there. That's no, I mean, that's usually how that all works out for the Steelers, and it's worked out for dozens of years. And it's restricting, not opening up things, right? It's not making the vista wider, it's actually making the game smaller by bringing together the team that you feel is going to execute this year at a high level. Not 3 years down the road in a high level, that kind of
Right,
stuff. There's no one in the Steelers staff right now looking at Will Howard and stuff and going, "Oh, yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, 2029, 2030 is gonna be excellent for that dude." Like, no one's doing that. No one we're trying to figure out which team's gonna get fielded this year, right? It's so for the teams that focus in on the objective, right? The Lombardi objective, they they make the game smaller. They want to have less variables going on. What you're talking about here is opening up an entire new vista of questionable decision making, so that you could do it even more.
It's no more questionable than making bets on stocks in the stock market, right? You get a financial, right? You get the projected financials, you get the quarterly reports, you read them over, you find out what the goal is, who's the CEO, you get all that information, and you make an educated projection. And there's all kinds of formulas for making those projections. The Olympic Committee has done this with athletes for decades, right? You're 13, you should be at this level. At 15, you should be at this level. And if you don't reach those benchmarks, they basically eliminate you as a person who can be a part of the Olympics in whatever, and they project it out to, okay, the 2028 Olympics, right? Or whatever year, like the next one is 2030 Olympics. They have 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds right now that they're projecting for the 2030 Olympics. And if they don't meet benchmarks, they basically start systematically eliminating them. How would this be any different in the NFL?
So I agree with you on the point that it was the messenger that literally got shot on this one, because I think the opportunity, I think the option should be there for them to do that, for the teams to do that. But everyone is just laughing because the Browns really should not be executing at that level. They need to be doing other things to make that team better.
What the Browns need to do is get their owner to shut up and stay out of things. And I think every Browns fan knows that. You let Andrew Berry run the situation, it runs pretty good. You needed two people to get out of the Browns situation. One, you needed Paul Day Podesta. I got balloons going up. You need to get rid of Paul Day Podesta, which we did, because he was running the situation like a baseball situation. But he's had a good analytics track record, right? So you can put in player development, projected player development, which the Browns do. They know if they draft a 24-year-old, that in 3 years they should be performing at this level. At 4 years, they should be performing at level B or C or D. I think all teams are doing it. They should be. If not, you're like the Bengals. But if you can do that you can do that with college athletes, you can do that with professional athletes. You can project them 5 years out. Why can't you draft them 5 years out?
Yeah.
Why can't you sit there and say, I know in 5 years this person's going to be operating at this level, and we have X amount of players who have the potential to operate at that level in 5 years. We want to jump into that draft to grab our players, as opposed to the draft before, where you're only going to have a smaller pool of players. Listen to the draft talk when it comes around. Get about the last week right before the draft. It'll be, okay, there are probably 10 elite players in this draft, right? They'll come up with something number like this.
Yeah.
And you want to get into that.
They get the ultimate green room.
Right.
They get the top 10.
Yeah. So you want to get into like, or they might say there's 16 players in this draft that are the elite 16, right? And so every team wants to get into the top 16 because you want one of those top 16 players. Last year, I think there were 5. There were 5 elite players that people consider to be elite, right? And the Browns were sitting at 2, and Travis Hunter was sitting there at 2. So the Browns literally just created some rhetoric about him being the Shohei Ohtani of football and enticed some moronic team to come up and trade for him. You can't play this guy both ways, because once you get him hurt, you've lost 2 players. You didn't lose just one. You've lost 2 players when they get hurt, and everybody gets hurt. So, and what happened? 3 weeks into the season, Travis Hunter's injured. Bam, they lost essentially their starting corner and a receiver on offense. But the Browns went back to 5 and still picked up a defensive tackle who was still in the top 5 of the 5 elite players in the draft. This is the kind of stuff the Browns do, right? They know who's there. They know who's to pick. They know where to fall back to and where to jump up to. And they know how to manipulate other teams to get what they want and add assets. So they got the player they wanted and added a pick this year, added their first round draft pick this year. It was a steal. It was like the steal of the draft. Nobody talks about it because it's the Browns that did it, right? But like the Browns have been like pillaging teams for a long time with these trades. A long time. And imagine if they can do it 5 years out. The problem is when you sit and pick at 5, you got to pick somebody that's going to play, and you got to be able to pick a coaching staff that's competent enough to coach them. And it's the coaching staff area. It's the picking them when you get Dave Podesta involved. When you the second person.
I understand the ask. I understand that you like the Browns, in order to get players that they believe are going to win games and stuff, they're going to need that additional collateral in the draft to go in and do that further manipulation. But I mean, you've got a set of quarterbacks right now, right? 2 or 3, right now. The Browns will probably still draft a quarterback in the top 7.
Probably. It just depends on Deshaun Watson. Depends on Shadeur Sanders. Can Todd Monken turn him into Lamar Jackson? If he can, then we're picking in the mid-20s in the playoffs.
Does he have to be Lamar Jackson, though?
I mean, get him to be good, essentially. If you can get him to play competent NFL quarterback.
He's serviceable. He absolutely is serviceable.
Right now, he's playing at backup level, okay? He's not.
He's playing Mason Rudolph football.
Okay, he's playing backup level, but that is not what you want for your franchise. So the question is, can Monken elevate him to a franchise level, which his numbers in college suggest he could be? So what you have to do is get a coach that can coach him up to be that. So this year, the Browns are going to find out, right, who is Shadeur Sanders. And any of these jokes about, Deshaun Watson's not playing. He's not. Right. They have to find out what's going on with Shadeur Sanders. And that's going to answer the question what they're doing in 2027, right? Are we picking one of the 10 projected best quarterbacks to come out in a decade? Are we going to bypass that whole situation? And you better believe every single team right now who needs a quarterback is looking at next year's draft. Nobody's drafting Ty Simpson. 6'1", injury history, played 15 college games. Nobody's drafting him. Not in the first round. If they do, that should tell you a lot about that franchise right there, that they have no idea what they're doing when they're looking at how do you project. I mean, Bill Parcells came out and said it. You want a guy who's had at least a college degree, 30 starts, has some experience, is over the age of 22. Otherwise, he's not going to be good in the NFL. And that has rung true from all the way back in the 90s. Yeah. That meant that analysis has rung true with quarterbacks. So you grab somebody like Ty Simpson, it's because you're not paying attention to what it takes to have a quarterback that succeeds. And then unfortunately, you get for the Browns, unfortunately, you get Jimmy Haslam in there, like, oh look, we can market Johnny Manziel, and the homeless guy thinks he's great. So I,
Boy.
and like Shadeur Sanders is one of those picks. I'm convinced Shadeur Sanders is one of those picks. We can market Shadeur Sanders.
I'm sure that's working great for them. Like, I mean, they're selling jerseys again, right? I mean, that's the thing is like, I mean, it's a business. So like, Shadeur Sanders was a good pickup for them because they got him low in the draft, right?
But
And
what's the objective? Is the objective to sell jerseys and tickets, or is the objective to win football games? And I think the fans have an objective. They want to see a winning football team.
yeah,
And I think the owners, who are business owners, also have an objective, which is to sell tickets and have a thriving business. Players, you got to ask yourself, where do the players sit on this? Like, players want paid. How are they getting paid? By selling tickets and selling merchandise. So it's where does the business meet the game on the field, right? You can make the case that you can win championships and therefore build prestige, and that gives you a kind of longer like shelf life in terms of selling merchandise, right? The Browns appeared in 10 consecutive championship games in the 1960s. Nobody still buys their stuff because of that. Now, the Patriots have won 4 Super Bowls in 10 years or something idiotic like this. That'll last them about 20 years, right? If they're not going to build another successful team, that dynasty will last them for a good 20 years of selling merchandise and building a fan base. So the winning builds the fan base. The fan base then in turn sends the money. So what's your theory on how you're getting fans to spend money? Is it because we have marketable players that they want to come see? Or is it because we've won championships? But you're not making a crap ton of money in that championship window because you're paying players, probably with a lot of deferred money, to pay for a high expensive team to win football games. So you're not making the money at that point in terms of like cash flow, but you'll get the cash flow for the next 20 years because of the investment in that 10-year period. So what's your objective? Is your objective to sell tickets and get people in there because they want to see Shadeur Sanders, or do you want to go in there and win football games? Fans want to see people winning football games,
right?
Which costs money and is not inducive for the short-term gain in terms of finances.
Exactly.
So anyway, there's my. It's a long discussion about roster building, but I think it's a good one because the 5-year projection thing was just laughed at out of hand, but it actually makes sense if you really do a deep dive into it.
I was hoping you were going to bring it up because I mean that was I was interested to hear what your take was on that because
I do think you get some analytics-based teams who have disciplined owners and who are responsible with their draft picks. They don't have Jimmy Haslam out there throwing them all at some team for some idiot, right? They start getting behind this. I do think I like 3 years. This is a rule. I think 5 years is almost about an 80% chance this is a rule. Once teams with analytics departments realize that you could just sit there and project 5 years out as opposed to 3 years out, and you do it in the same way like the Olympics or the stock market or other ways that do player evaluation, it's a no-brainer. It literally it makes more long-term sense to do that.
It could. It could. Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm still speculative on that particular rule change.
I mean, it's like, is the government going to protect you from your own stupidity? Like, yeah, there's going to be teams that are stupid, but is it the government's role? And I know we don't talk about politics, but is it the government's role to protect people from their own stupidity? And if the answer is yes, then okay, let's limit it to 3 because 2 people are not responsible enough to handle their own freaking business. But if you look at it, you say each team has an individual responsibility and each team has their own mental capacity to handle situations. And if they do stupid things, and I know people who don't pay their bills, and I know people who struggle with certain things, the government can't come in and regulate that you're going to pay your bills. I mean, you have the freedom of choice to do that. So, I mean, if the rule committee is the godfather that protects people from themselves, then I understand. But if it's about how do we project players out and build a roster and give it more flexibility, then I think teams will get on board.
Yeah. It will. It will. It will. It'll have to come from a team that's not struggling, right? That's not on the struggle bus, right?
It has to be Virginia and not Massachusetts, right? It can't be John Adams. It can't be John Adams.
Right.
It's
Can't be
got to
John
be.
Adams.
It's got to be Lee from Virginia.
Woohoo! Oh my goodness.
So for those of you who aren't following, I'm referencing the musical 1776, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
All right, that's my football for the day.
Thank you for sharing the football of the day. The Steelers don't have anything to share. We're still right where we were at before. Still looking to see whether or not we're going to have a veteran quarterback or if we're playing backstreet ball with our backups and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens.
I'll say one more thing: the Browns are not trading Myles Garrett. Okay, they're not. They're not trading him for 5 first-round picks. Okay. They're not trying to change the rules so somebody will give him 5 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's the best player in the NFL. I don't care who you think otherwise. He is. He's dominant, and he does. As a Steelers fan, teams will change their entire offense to prevent him from sacking your quarterback. He is the most dominant player in the game, possibly top 5 most dominant player in the history of the game, given what we saw last year. They're not trading him. He is going from the draft to Canton as a Cleveland Brown. That's just what's happening.
Now will Joe Burrow come and become a Steeler?
Maybe. Joe Burrow's going to do the same thing that Carson, what was the quarterback that retired on him because he's just so mad about it? The guy they got from USC a while back. He would just retired because he got so sick of it. And then, other quarterbacks that are just like, I'm just here as like a cow to be milked. Mike Brown is literally the owner that's just like, how do I make money today and screw everything else?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
All right. We had other things we want to talk about. What else are we talking about today?
Well, we were talking about Masonic stuff too, right?
All right.
That's the other shoe on this two-shoed type of podcast here. We were talking about Freemasonry and the myths. So is Masonry a secret society, or is it a society with secrets?
Well, I have a hard time saying it's a secret society because if you want to know where the Freemasons are and where they hang out and what they're doing, all you have to do is go downtown, find their building, and generally there will be a sign on the door saying when they're meeting. So if it's a secret, it's not a well-kept secret.
Okay.
So let's go with that one first of all. So I don't think it's a secret society because everybody knows who we are.
All right. That's right. That was my answer too. It's like, you've got lodges all over the United States. You can visit any single one of them. And you can see Masons out in the wild, right? You can see us at charity events. You can see us at, networking events. We're everywhere. So it's not a secret society.
And I would challenge, and this is going to be my unique take for the day, I would challenge the idea that we're a society with secrets, depending on what you define as a secret, right? Now, those of us who are master Masons, we know that if Mike tells me something in secret and says, look, I'm telling you in secret that, I am to some extent obligated to keep that secret. In that respect, maybe there is a secret in Masonry. But if you want to talk about, is there a secret kind of knowledge that we have? I mean, anything, and I studied philosophy for a long, long time. I was at a PhD in philosophy. I taught philosophy for a long time. There's nothing I've seen in the Blue Lodge lectures that you can't find in medieval thought or early Renaissance thought or ancient thought, even like Enlightenment. Like there's no secret. Like if you're in here to try to like discover some super secret way to manipulate nature, you're looking at the wrong place.
Right.
It's just, this is not where you're going.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there are the secrets that are held are the ones regarding ritual and things like that. Like those are the things that are, not shared. It's not a televised meeting.
Right. And right. There are plenty of societies that have that, right? There are plenty of societies you join where there are things that go on and happen in the way that society operates that just not shared to the public. For instance, the Catholic Church. That is not a transparent society, right? They're no more of a secret society than Freemasons are a secret society. They run things the way they run things. Nobody knows what goes on inside those conclaves to elect the Pope. All we know is there's some smoke that comes up and either a Pope's been elected or it hasn't been elected. One of the two.
Exactly.
And like you can talk about other kinds of like religious bodies. I mean, like Scientology. Who knows what's going on in Scientology? They're not transparent. The U.S. government is not transparent.
Right.
There are plenty of non-transparent organizations, and Freemason just happens to be what I'd like to call a non-transparent organization. But that doesn't make us illegal or dangerous, no more
Or
than, well, I
secret.
would say no more than the government's dangerous. But one could have a debate with that whether the government is dangerous or not. But I
All right.
I do want to ask, and I do want to talk about one thing because it's near and dear to my heart. Because
Sure.
when it's story time. All right. When I first became a Mason with my philosophical background, I immediately jumped into, as an entered apprentice, into every single thing I could find on Freemasonry and began reading it because I was convinced that I was going to find the secret of what Freemasonry is. And so I read everything. I mean, like if it was out there, I found it and I read it. And there's still stuff I'm reading. And now I'm a little bit more discerning, not being a master Mason, a little bit more discerning about, all right, this is garbage but back then, 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm an intelligent person, I have no training or grounding in what Freemasonry is. So I'm trying to figure out what it is. So I'm taking everything in. And I came across a whole bunch of like esotericism, and it made no sense to me. And it still to this day makes no sense to me why we would jump into esotericism. So I'm going to get on my high horse for a second. Esotericism is based on the idea that Freemasonry is about knowledge. It's about something you can put into your head and learn. And to say that Freemasonry is a secret society or has secrets would to imply that Freemasonry has some kind of secret knowledge that if you get in the group, you will then be able to attain that knowledge that nobody else has. And that is absolutely false. It's just not there. It's not there because that's not what Freemasonry is about. It's not about the attainment of knowledge. Okay. Freemasonry, if you look at the ritual, you look at the things we talk about, the things that we hold up in esteem in our lodges, is about brotherly love, relief, and truth. And by truth, we're not talking about knowledge. We're talking about interacting with each other in a way that is proper. Okay. So Masonry has more to do with helping other people, relating to ourselves, relating to other people, showing proper respect to where it's due, and helping society as a whole. That's what, if you look at what we do and what we talk about, that is what is done and that is what is talked about in a lodge. How do we make our world better? How do we make ourselves better? How do we make our lodge better? How do we help each other to become better men? That is literally what everything from the ritual to the charges to the working tools to getting together and eating dinner. I mean, it all serves that one particular function. That's why it's a fraternity. That's why it's a brotherhood. People together helping each other and helping each other become better people and living in a better world that we live in. That is it. There's no super secret. It's not about the attainment of some kind of information that somehow makes me have an advantage over other people in the world, right? So I can dominate them or lord it over them. And this is literally what esotericism teaches, right? There's some kind of knowledge out there. And if you can get into the Freemason circle, then you can acquire that knowledge and then you have an advantage over everyone else and you can succeed beyond them, right? Go read those books. And when you start seeing that, you realize they may claim they're Freemasons, but in spirit, they're not. They may be in letter, but in spirit, they're not. Because what Freemasonry is, again, is not about knowledge. It's about action. It's not what the Greeks called gnosis. It's what the Greeks called ethos, right? It's not about what I know. It's about how I act. And so we are taught through these working tools, we are taught through the charges of how we're supposed to act, through the lectures, through all these things, how we're supposed to relate to each other in charity, brotherly love, relief, right? Truth being a way of acting toward other people. So I think it's a good question to ask. Is it a secret society and is it a society with secrets? And I would answer no to both of them, even though the official company line is we are a society with secrets. I just think we're a non-transparent society, right? We are not telling that. We are not
Right.
out there telling you that. But if you want to know all the things you're not supposed to, I can get on the internet and find every lecture. I can find every charge. I can find everything we're not supposed to talk about on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's just we're not telling it. We're not being transparent because it's a part of our brotherhood.
Right. Right. I agree. Yeah. No, I mean, all that information is out there, and it's all very simplistic. There's no real secret about it. It's just that I think when we try to go out into society and we comport ourselves in a different manner, I think people observe that. I think that's an observable change. And I think you
Right.
can even ask our spouses and stuff and our family members, right?
Mhm.
How were you before you joined the Masons versus when you're actively involved in them and stuff like that? And I think that is part of the preponderance of this of the secrecy. There is like, how in the world did this person, you know, become a better man, right? How did they achieve the things that they have achieved? And we didn't think that they could achieve those kinds of things.
Right.
And that achievement, right? And to your point, it has a lot to do with as out there is, oh yeah, conquering things, winning things, all of those kinds. It's not really about that. It's about making yourself better internally, and then exporting that to the people that you know.
Exactly.
Right. So you start off working with your brothers, working on yourself, and then your spouse, your children, right? The people in your community, the people that you work with. And I think that adds to the kind of that air of secrecy. But yeah, it's just like it's not published by us out there.
I think some of the best advice I got on Freemason was from Chris Springer and Paul Bathgate, who we had earlier on the show. Right. I was talking to them about some of my frustrations with all this esotericism because that esotericism, it's about knowledge, and you get that knowledge
Mm,
and I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even square with what we're doing in the lodge. And they said, if you want to learn about masonry, you need to take all those books, put them back on the shelf, and just hang out with your brothers. And so that's what I did. I like you know what? Screw it. I'm doing is getting confused and upset and frustrated, and like I don't know if I want to continue with this because I'm just so frustrated with all this stuff I'm reading. And they're just like, put them down and just hang out. Come to dinner, right? Because we have dinners before lodge, nice dinners before lodge. Come to lodge, hang out, listen to our education programs, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you know what? That's what I did. I put the books down and I
mhm,
started hanging out, and the other thing they said was just start volunteering. Go to do this. Like I went to the parade that we have in Tip City. I went to, what is that? The Mum Festival parade I was in, and we just started volunteering, started doing everything that you could. Just get involved, get around it, and that's what becomes transformative, right? If there's a secret at all in Freemasonry, in my opinion, it's the secret of when you are a man and you hang out with other good men, you become a better man because of the people
right,
you're around.
right.
And that's transformative. And
Mhm,
that, if there's any secret, that's it, right? Get a good person around other good people and you will become better. You'll become better as morally, ethically. You may even become better at your business if like you're running business and you're saying, hey, I'm struggling with this, and you're talking to another one. They're not going
mhm,
to fix the situation for you, but they may give you a tip like, hey, have you tried
right,
doing this, this, and this? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about that. So you have this whole support network of good men helping you to become a better man. That, if anything, is the secret to Freemasonry.
right, right. Absolutely. Next question,
All right.
Joel. Do the Freemasons rule the world?
I'm reminded of this. You've seen the movie Austin Powers. Like the first thing that came to my head is, you want to take over the world, you idiot. But the first thing you have to learn is there's no world anymore. There's only corporations. And I tend to think that's true, that there's not really a world anymore. There's just corporations. But I would answer this by saying this: Freemasonry is not a global organization. So it's hard for a non-global organization to have an organized global influence.
Right.
It's almost comical to read some of this stuff and know what I know about Freemasonry
Mhm.
and think that somehow Freemasons are running the world. Now, are there dubious people who are Masons who may be doing dubious things on a global scale. That may be happening. I can't stop that. Nobody can. But to say that person is indicative of all of Freemasonry is
Right.
a big stretch. That's a big
Right.
stretch.
Like we're all tuned into it, right?
Like, yeah, we're all into the secret thing. This reminds me of when I went to join our lodge. We had one of these open houses, and this is another Chris Springer story. So I went to join the lodge, and Chris Springer was up there, and he asked. There were like four of us that went up to visit. Right, we got to see the inside of the lodge and that kind of thing. And he said, "Why do you think about joining Freemasonry?" And I was, I had all kinds of reasons. But I looked at him and I said, "Because I want my share of the treasure. I want my part of that treasure
I
from
love that.
National Treasure." And he
I
just
love that.
laughed at me. He's like, "We don't have that much money." So I don't get my part. I mean, I want one of those Anubis statues for my office, man. I mean, come on. So there
Okay,
is.
so I
Go
think
ahead.
we successfully debunked that one.
Well, I
Okay.
would just want to be clear to say that Freemasonry is like a local organization,
Yes.
and there's no codified. You will do this, this, and this. Each individual lodge operates in its own way. Now, there's a structured, we all do the same ritual, at least in Ohio, and there's a mechanism in place to make sure we're all doing the same ritual, but that's about it in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
like governance.
Exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely a decentralized fraternity. And, if anybody's ever watched us, try to pull off a hamburger and brat and hot dog thing at the car show and stuff like that. I mean, we're just kind of learning along with everybody else. There's
Yep.
nothing new world order about doing the things that we do.
Right.
Okay, next question. Devil worship, goats, and other weird stuff.
Okay. Devil worship, goats, and other weird stuff is a
Yeah,
lot of
people.
fun. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun to tease new people that they're going to have to deal with the goats.
Yes.
But reality is there are no goats or devil worship or anything like, at least what I've experienced in the Blue Lodge. And I'll be honest with you, if I ever come across something that's like devil worship, I'm just gonna break my whatever silence I have to and be like, I'm done with this. But it's hard to talk about the great architect of the universe and talk about brotherly love, relief, and truth, and somehow tie that to pure unadulterated evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. When the whole thing is making good men better and getting together with good men to become a better person, then where's
Mhm.
the evil on this? The only way I can think of it is if you had a global organization recruiting people to put out some mass agenda, but we're not organized enough to do something like that.
No, no. Yeah, so if anyone's looking for us to do that, we're not gonna be doing that anytime soon, so, yeah, and it has nothing to do with devil worship or goats. Those were just, kind of probably memes back 100 years ago when that first came out about Freemasons and goats and such.
It's easy to pick on a group and fearmonger and gain
Yeah.
power through fear mongering off somebody else. I can't imagine this goes on today where you vilify your
Mhm.
opponent to gain power, but at least that was going on back then.
Oh, okay, so is Masonry a religion, a cult, or what?
I'm going with or what?
Or what? It's an
I
or
think
what?
I think it's a fraternity, okay? Like a college fraternity, right? I mean, in terms of you have a specific group of people. Fraternos is a fraternus is a Latin word meaning brother. So it's a brotherhood of people that are organized for a reason. That reason is to become better people. So I'm not giving it cult. I'm not giving it, again, I think to be a cult would mean you'd have to have some kind of organization, and that's not us. And to be a religion, you'd have to have, again, some kind of organization higher than what we have at the local level. Literally, it's a
Mhm.
brotherhood of men looking to become better people at the local level, and everything we do is local. So it's not like that you have the higher
Right,
level organization to develop into a cult or a religion.
right. Yeah, from everything that I've seen and for how long I've been a Freemason, I can say that clearly it's not a cult because it doesn't have all of the cultish things about it, right? I
Right. We
mean, there's
literally say that your duty and responsibility to your family is more important than your responsibility to the fraternity. A cult would say the exact opposite.
exactly. Yeah, you would have people just like, just their entire life is all and bound up with the Masonic fraternity. They would drop everything that they had at home and work and stuff to go in and support that organization. And then, yeah, then you would need a crazy, cult leader that would be centralized, that would be telling everybody what they needed to be doing and saying
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And that doesn't exist either. I mean, you
Right.
can just see that just like when you go to a lodge meeting in a different state and their process is different. Some of the words are different, the rituals are different, all of that kind of stuff. So each state gets to go and decide, you know, the words that are said and
Hmm.
the things that are done and stuff like that. So if it's a cult, you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want that kind of differentiation between, you know, the Ohio Freemasons and the Indiana Freemasons and the Kentucky Freemasons, right?
Hmm. And if it was a cult, you would absolutely want to disconnect them from anybody that would put thoughts into your head that this is a bad situation. And we do the exact opposite. We're telling you go connect with everybody and
Right.
show them brotherly love, relief, and truth. And be outward going.
And as a cult, we would want to have way better recruiting, right? We don't go out and recruit. So how do you keep a strong cult? If you don't actually recruit, you don't go out seeking new members. Members seek us, right? Those kinds of things. So that doesn't happen in a cult. So, all right, debunk that one. All right. Then the last question is, how can people actually join? Are you invited to the secret order? Is it
Mike, I'm gonna
by
let you go first because I've been answering all
invite?
these. I've been answering all these. I'm gonna let you go first this time.
So you you're not invited. In fact, when people ask me questions about masonry, I answer them very clearly, succinctly, and then just stop the conversation, unless the person asking is has some sort of reason why they would want to join,
Mhm.
right? So it's usually, tell me more about masonry. My father was a mason. My grandfather was a mason. I don't talk to them anymore. They may live in a different state than they do, right? Those kinds of things. And so then I start to get a little bit more developed in discussion about Freemasonry. But then again, I just leave it on them to do the ask, right? To ask,
Right.
hey, how can I become a mason? I would like to join. I would like to learn more. And, those are kind of the words that, cue me in and say, okay, maybe we need to get this guy in for have some dinner with us.
Right. I like to think of it like knock. The person has to knock. They have to say,
Hmm.
"Hey, there's something about Freemasonry. I might be interested in Freemasonry." And then you can have the questions and ask the questions. But my only thing is always, is this somebody that I want to accept in my inner circle? And if you think of it that way, it makes a lot of sense to me. Like if this is a fraternity and these are my brothers, is this going to be a good person in our mix?
Hmm.
Because as soon as they come into our mix, they're going to upset your balance. They're going to add something to, which means the whole situation is going to change in some way. Is this
Right.
somebody that contributes to me becoming a better person? Is this somebody that has something that contributes to that? Right. I
Hmm.
mean, I think I listened to somebody, I don't remember who it was talking about how we're not interested in projects. We're not interested in, the guy that needs us to fix them. We're interested in the guy that
Right.
can contribute to the overall health of who we are. Uh, so I think to me, that's the discernment when somebody knocks on the door. Is this
Hmm.
somebody that can contribute to our body?
Right. Right. It's not someone that's fractured and has 10,000 issues and, they want to add 1,001 issues by becoming a Mason, right? So, in fact, I mean, part of that is as soon as come in, have dinner with us, those kinds of things, get to meet the guys, see what masonry is a little bit more about what masonry is all about. You can go see our, history room, right? You can go check out all of the old relics and stuff like that from that's been collected over time by our lodge. And, then once they make that decision, then we do an interview, right? So,
Right.
then we just interview them and ask them all of the different questions, you know, silly ones, just like an employment application, right? Where you're like, how are you going to get the lodge? Do you have a car, right? Do you walk? Like those kinds of things, right? Silly things, but like some people don't even think about that, you know? So in order to continue on with masonry, you have to show up at meetings and stuff like that. You have to show up
And I
for
think
those things.
is some of the wordage, right? Like,
Yeah.
you need to show up to be around your brothers if it's going to mean anything to you. It's only through the interaction with the other people in the lodge that you become a better person.
Right.
If you don't participate, then what good is it for you?
Right. Exactly. Now, I've asked all the questions I was going to ask. And are any of your close friends confused as to what masonry is?
Any of my close friends?
Yes.
I don't really think the people I know think it's funny that I'm a Mason, and I just kind of leave it at that because I figured, you
Okay.
know what? If it's a joke to you, then you're clearly not somebody that I want in my lodge. So
Right.
I just leave it at that. I think there's a kind of misconception about what masonry is based on some of the things that we've talked about today, right? Is it about
Mm-hmm.
a cult? Is it this? Is it that? And it kind of got and I don't really move in a circles where there's been a lot of Masons historically, so I'm kind of like treading new ground in terms of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some misunderstanding of what masonry is leading to, their favorite thing is to just make fun of me for it. So and
Right.
I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine. Makes me wonder why I still have you around as a friend. But if that's your go-to is to laugh at me, then what are we doing here?
Well,
So
and I'm sure you don't actively challenge them on that stuff, right?
it's not worth it. It's not worth arguing. There are some people that are just not worth arguing with.
Right. Right. And, trying to explain something that they may have just seen a couple episodes of Dan Brown, his
Mhm.
movies and stuff like that. And they go, okay, so that's what you guys do. Right. And so that's the limit of what they understand. And for the most part, that's the limit of anything that they want to understand about it.
Right. And if you're not disposed towards self-improvement, like if you're happy with what you got and you're just going to kind of float along with life, I mean, masonry is just
Hmm.
not for you. Like it's just not for you. I mean, masonry is about self-improvement. It's about becoming better as a person, by becoming better as a man, by becoming better as a community. And if you're not disposed towards wanting to be better than what you are today, then I
Hmm.
would recommend you not become a Freemason because it's not going to be somewhere where you fit.
Right. Exactly. I love it.
I'll bring up the last question. Why am I wearing all this Cleveland Guardian stuff?
Yes.
For those
Yes.
of
I
you
want to know.
who can see all this, and those
On
of you
YouTube.
on YouTube, and those of you who've heard me talk know that I am a fan of the reigning two-time world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. My son, however, is a Cleveland Guardians fan. And last night, the Guardians defeated the two-time reigning world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, and therefore I am wearing the Guardian stuff on the podcast. Keeping it fun.
Now, are you going to continue wearing it or?
Well, I'm pretty confident that when you put I think it's Otani going tonight. I think Otani and Yamamoto are going the next 2 days.
Ooh,
I'm pretty confident that the Dodgers can come out with some victories.
you can change your clothes then.
Roki Sasaki is the weakest link here. Although I will say this for Sasaki, he gave run over 6 innings, I think. So
Right.
it wasn't a bad start, but he is historically not good. So we'll go with Yamamoto and Otani as the pitchers, and we'll be all right.
All right. It's awesome. Well, I'm going to go close her out there, Joel.
All right.
All right. So this is the most recent episode of Hash Marks and Working Tools. I am your host, Mike McDermott, and Joel Cade. another wonderful episode. Thanks for sharing with us about the Browns and stats and all of that kind of stuff and the draft and all of the plans.
Well, thanks for having me on and listening to me patiently.
It's a good one. You take care. We'll see you, Joel.
See ya.
See ya. Bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Hash Marks and Working Tools podcast with your hosts, Mike McDermott and Joel Cade. This podcast is sponsored by Bashfu Digital Marketing,